Hi, my name is Ed Justus. You might know me as the owner of the bookstore in Hanapepe. I'm here today to talk about some proposals that I have that I feel can help our community and the county of Kauai solve some of our long-standing issues. One of my proposals is going to be how we can diversify the economy and starting with agriculture and reviving our agriculture. Another one of the proposals I'll be talking about is how to lower property taxes for our residents, so that way every resident on the island will benefit from that. And also how to create a permanent property ladder for our residents and their families, so that way there will always be opportunities for affordable housing and for our families to make that step up from being a renter to owning the home that they want. So the first thing I want to talk about is agriculture. To me, that is the golden resource that we have here on the island. 80% of our island is either zoned or designated agriculture. And when we talk about diversifying the economy, any discussion about that has to start with agriculture, because we have a year-round growing season. Not too many places in the world have that kind of opportunity. We have so much potential here. And yet, even though we have all this potential, we only produce about 10% of the state's total agriculture. Places like Oahu, which has less agricultural land, they produce up to 30%. And I think part of the reason for this is because they have a incentivized tax rate for agricultural land that is active. I find that other counties have also done this here in Hawaii, and we can do the same thing in order to get our agricultural activities occurring a lot more. So I think what we can do is that we can lower the tax rate for active agriculture. People who are already engaged in farming, that are already engaged in producing crops, and already generating an activity on their land. And we can also incentivize the creation of a special property tax rate that allows people who have vacant ag land to make the transition to active ag land, because there's going to be a lot of startup costs involved in that. So anything we can do to help them make that transition, I think we can definitely incentivize. And there's going to be people who have vacant ag land that are not interested in making that transition. And just like the other counties, you can have a higher property tax rate on the vacant ag land. So when I talk about diversifying the economy through agriculture, a lot of people will say, well, but not everyone wants to be a farmer. I mean, you're only talking about creating farmer jobs. Well, the reality is, by bringing back agriculture, you're not just creating farming jobs, you're actually opening up a couple different sectors of the economy. So not only would you have agricultural jobs that are created, you're going to have jobs created through supportive industries that are going to be directly involved in making the agricultural industry occur and happen, transporting goods, marketing, all kinds of stuff. Also, what will happen is, with all those crops that are produced, you're going to create another economic sector of value-added businesses, entrepreneurs who are going to see what these crops can do and convert them into a value-added product that can be sold here on the island, within the islands, or even exported to other markets where there's high demand for those kinds of things. So the cool thing is, by revitalizing agriculture, we've gone from having one major economy, tourism, to having four major economies: tourism, agriculture, supportive industries, and value-added entrepreneurial jobs. So one of the added benefits of revitalizing agriculture is it actually helps the climate too, because there's a lot of discussions of, well, what can Kauai County do to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions? Even just 1 acre of corn pulls out a significant amount of CO2 out of the air than just your regular grass does. So we have all this land that's being used for active agriculture. That's going to be helping to pull a lot more CO2 out. And that's going to be good not only to help feed us, but it's also going to support the climate as well. The other thing we can do to help support agriculture, since there is a high startup cost for farmers, especially for those converting from vacant land to active agriculture, is that we can recognize agriculture as critical infrastructure. What that does is that opens up the ability to help fund our farmers through public safety funds. This way, what we're doing is we're ensuring that we always will have enough food to feed ourselves. If we are cut off from the mainland, whether it's through more pandemics, or if it's from war or political instability on the mainland, at least if we are cut off, we will have the ability that food will always be there for all of our residents. And that is something that the county would be able to support through public safety. The next proposal I'd like to talk about is reducing property taxes for our residents. Other counties have a tiered property tax system, and they also have a property tax system that taxes non-residents at a higher rate than our residents. And I think that's a really good model to follow. I think that if we have a lower tax rate for our residents, that actually is allowing them to save more money and also be able to invest into their families and to their families' educations as well. I think having a higher non-resident tax rate does a few different things. One is that it discourages people from the mainland or elsewhere from buying up property and using it as a second vacation home and not having that available for people here on the island. I think that we can change and discourage that behavior. Also, if we have a higher non-resident tax rate, any monies that are raised from that revenue can be used directly in the county's ability to create more affordable housing opportunities. Now, the non-resident property tax rate would be split into basically three tiers. You'd have any houses that are under $1 million, which would be the existing 6.5% rate that is currently charged for residential. And then you would have a higher tax rate for anything that would be over $1 million up to a certain point, and that would be taxed at 10.5%, since basically that is like a second home, almost like a resort or a hotel for an individual, essentially. And then there would be a higher tax rate for the much higher value homes. I think that, again, those two higher tax rates that you see here, those would then be used to help funnel into the creation of more affordable housing opportunities. The other thing that we can do is also incentivize the creation of more affordable housing through a special tax rate for people who are using residential properties for workforce housing or affordable housing. And there are other counties that actually have this rate in existence already. It's a great model to follow, and I think we can do it. So the nice thing is we're not really having to reinvent the wheel. We're just using ideas that have worked in other places and using them to help our county. The next thing I'd like to propose is some solutions for affordable housing, as well as creating a permanent property ladder for our residents. And that is the plan that I have here. So affordable housing kind of comes into two categories. You have your affordable housing opportunities that are provided from the county for buy-ins from our residents, where the county is a co-owner. And then there is the workforce housing, affordable housing rentals. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a way we can incentivize those rental abilities through a property tax scheme that would allow a lower property tax rate for residents or for residential property. Now, the other one I would like to propose is that instead of the county maintaining a 10-year co-ownership for these buy-in opportunities, the county would actually be a permanent co-owner of affordable housing buy-ins. How this works, essentially, is that once the county has a development that is ready to be bought in by a resident, the person who goes in to purchase, they have to maintain that co-ownership with the county. Once they're done making their payments, whether that's a 10-year term or 20-year or 30-year, they can then stay in that property as long as they want. It is basically their home. The condition is that if they ever want to sell the home in order to take that step up the property ladder to the home that they actually want, they have to sell the house back to the county. Now, what this does is that allows the county to then use that money that those residents have invested in themselves, gives that money back to them so that they can take the step up the property ladder. Then the county would then be able to offer that same affordable housing opportunity to the next family that's here on the island. And the good thing is that we would be able to allow these buy-in opportunities to be specifically for residents. There would be a residency requirement that you've had to have been here for, say, 3 years or 5 years. And in that way, we're ensuring that people from the mainland or non-residents or anywhere else in the world aren't coming in to take advantage of these opportunities. The other great thing is that by the county being a permanent owner of these affordable housing units, permanent co-owner, it means that these affordable housing developments will never disappear into the housing market, because we already have a shortage of available spaces and available rentals and available housing. So if the county can maintain something like this, then that means our residents will always have a permanent opportunity to go up the property ladder. Another thing that's really important to me is incentivizing the revitalization of our small communities, especially our small business communities, our existing towns. We have lots of vacant properties or distressed properties all across the island in each of our communities, where these used to be very active areas, used to have lots of businesses, small businesses that were creating jobs and also creating the heart and soul of each one of these communities. The county can create a property tax incentive that would allow people who are engaged in the rehabilitation or revitalization of existing commercial properties, and then that would allow these distressed towns to be able to finally fill in the gaps in each of these communities. Here's what I propose to help revitalize our small business communities. In order to encourage current vacant properties to first be utilized instead of prioritizing the building of newer commercial developments, we can create a lower property tax rate for commercial properties that are active or are engaged in the renovation of distressed or damaged commercial building properties. Hanapepe is a really great example. We have lots of buildings in that town that were damaged from Hurricane Iniki and have been sitting either vacant or destroyed for decades. The idea is that if we offer a lower property tax rate on commercial properties that are engaged in the renovation or restoration or rebuilding of these vacant lands or damaged properties, we can give them a lower rate that would encourage them to be able to begin that activity. There are many instances here where there are commercial properties that have been sitting without renters or small businesses occupying those properties for long periods of time, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years. And these vacant properties essentially are being taxed the same as those who have active small businesses going in them. The idea here is that if we have a higher tax rate on vacant commercial properties that are not producing small businesses, that are not creating more activity and more jobs, this would encourage those landowners to be able to offer rents at a reduced rate in order to have active small businesses in them. What this would do is they would then be able to qualify for the active commercial property tax rate instead of the higher vacant property tax rate. The whole idea here is to incentivize vacant commercial spaces to be rented and incentivize the renovation of distressed commercial buildings. These should be prioritized over the building of any new commercial developments. Let's utilize what we already have here on the island to be able to create more opportunities for small businesses and to help fill in the gaps in our small business communities. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my proposals. I've got lots more ideas and I'll be presenting them over the course of the next month or two. And if you want to know more about them, please visit the website www.edjustusforall.com/proposals. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you soon.